Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video. Myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is Ukraine War breaking news update for the 15th of October 2024. And this has been a bit of news that's been brewing over time. So yes, it's kind of coming to fruition today with a little bit more detail potentially. We'll talk about that in a second. But the idea that North Korea are involved in the war in Ukraine on behalf of Russia has been something that has been developing ever since we knew that they were sending these huge shipping containers full of artillery ammunition and other suspected items to Russia. Now it's thought something like 13,000 shipping containers have gone, and that half of Russian artillery ammunition is now North Korean. So that's been going on for some time. Then, if you remember, a couple of months ago, they signed Russia and North Korea signed a bilateral security agreement, a military agreement that was rather akin to Article 5 of NATO, which, of course, Article 5 states that if you are a member state that is attacked by another nation, the other nations will come to your support. Right, so it invokes these other nations from or it obliges these other nations from NATO to send military sort of personnel and help defend the country that's being attacked. So Russia have signed a similar agreement with North Korea, and I said at the time, this is giving permission, of course, otherwise you wouldn't sign it, for North Korean soldiers to be used by Russia. And as soon as Ukraine attacked into Kursk, I said, one thing that could happen here is that you might see Russians calling on North Koreans to come and help them, because like Article 5, that's an invasion into Russia. Although, of course, Russia has already stated that Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson and Crimea are Russia. So in fact, they can just invoke it anyway. So I wouldn't put a blame on Kursk necessarily. So if we go back a little bit in time, on the 4th of October, do you remember I reported that six North Korean officers were killed in a missile strike? According to a source on that day, Defense Forces managed to eliminate 20 Russian invaders and 6 officers from North Korea who arrived in the occupied territory, allegedly to consult with the Russians. 3 more soldiers from North Korea were wounded. Earlier, the Pentagon stated that North Korean military who arrived to help the Russian occupiers in Ukraine will become cannon fodder. Yeah, but what are you going to do about it? That's the question. So then we heard on the 10th of October, so that's the 4th of October, 10th of October, we heard that North Korean troops were deployed alongside Russian troops in Ukraine, according to some sources. Engineers are said to be supporting missile launches, and reports of North Koreans killed near Donetsk, as we heard. So North Korean military engineers have been deployed to help Russia target Ukraine with ballistic missiles, and fighters operating in occupied areas of the country have already been killed, senior officials in Kiev and Seoul said. Then a few days later, a day later, on the 11th of October, Washington Post gave even more information about North Korean involvement. Korean forces are backing Russia inside Ukraine, officials say. Kim Jong-un has pledged, quote, full support for Russia's Putin in his fight against Ukraine. Seoul and Kiev say he's now doing that by sending in military personnel. And in the article, it says a Ukrainian military intelligence official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive security matter said, quote, several thousand North Korean infantry soldiers are undergoing training in Russia now and could be deployed to the front line in Ukraine by the end of this year. The official said North Korean officers are already on the ground in Russian-occupied Ukraine to observe Russian forces and study the battlefield, but Kiev hasn't seen any North Korean units fighting yet. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, of course, said it was a hoax. Well, now we have a claim that's come out today from Liga.net. This is a Ukrainian news source. They are reporting that Russia is forming a battalion of North Korean citizens on the basis of a Buryat brigade, according to the source. The approximate number of personnel of this battalion is approximately 3,000 people. A source in the military intelligence said, on the basis of the 11th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade, so this is a Google Translate, or in this case, Microsoft Translate, edge translate of the article. On the basis of the 11th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade of the Russian Occupation Army, a special Buryat battalion is being formed, staffed by citizens of North Korea. Reported by Liga.net by an interlocutor, or to Liga.net by an interlocutor in military intelligence. According to the source, the approximate number of personnel of this battalion is approximately 3,000 people. Currently, the military is provided with small arms and ammunition. Intelligence officers suggest that the battalion may be involved in combat missions near Sudzha and Kursk. Back in the summer, the Pentagon stated that the North Korean military, who would arrive to help the Russian occupiers, would become cannon fodder. Yesterday, October 14th, Zelensky noted that the DPRK, so North Koreans, actually got involved in the Russian-Ukrainian war. So this is incredibly worrying. The question is, of course, what is going to happen? This is surely a red line that's been crossed. You have troops formally from another nation in the style of NATO Article 5 type thing, are being brought to bear against the Ukrainians. We are supplying everything to the Ukrainians, bar people on the front line. What happens now? What is this? Surely not a red line. Are we so impotent that we just sit back and let that frog get boiled? Just the heat gets more and more and more until that frog is dead, and we go, "Oh, who knew? It's boiled to death. Oh well, Ukraine's now Russian." Like, are we serious about defending Ukraine here or not? It's incredibly worrying. So I think this should be setting off red line, not just warnings, but red line actions. I think this should be enough for the US to say, right, you can use whatever weapons you like deep into Russia, because this is not acceptable. And I think we should be providing cruise missiles and ATACMS by the bucket load to Ukraine, and we should be allowing Ukraine to do everything they can to fight this war. We should be giving them enough equipment to fire at those planes, either in the air bases deep in Russian territory or in the air before they drop those guided glide bombs 50 to 70 kilometers from the front line. We have to be doing everything we can to support Ukraine, and at the moment we just aren't. So anyway, that's my tuppence and my frustration that it turns out that North Korea and Iran are better allies to Russia than any of us are to Ukraine, it seems. Russia say jump, North Korea say how high. Ukraine say, hey, we're dying. We say, good luck with that. We are helping, of course we're helping. But we just hamstring success. We tie Ukraine's hands behind their back and then say, off you go into battle. It's really frustrating. Let me know what you think, guys. Obviously, this might not be correct, but why would you sign? Why would you sign a bilateral NATO 5, Article 5 style agreement with North Korea if you weren't going to use it? It seemed that was a point where Russia were desperate, knew that they were needing very much troops, and we have seen them steal troops from different countries around the world. There's a story today in my upcoming video of a Nepalese woman destitute over her, absolutely heartbroken, over her the loss of her son fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Although I think he's been captured as a POW, but it's just, they're going around the world crypto and klepto mobilizing, and that has shown, I think, a sign of desperation. And now they're just formally engaging other nations in mutual defense and cooperation. Just incredibly worrying. Anyway, enough from me. Take care, and I'll speak to you relatively soon.